Hello, friends. Welcome to the podcast. This is episode 46, and I'm calling it What is Comfort? Now, I'm sure you have a few ideas, but I'll share in a bit about the stronghold I dealt with concerning this, because we are in this season where we're talking about strongholds. And I'll also mention at the end of this message about the Breaking Strongholds course, which I want you all to please pray about being a part of, okay? And I'll share the information about that later. But first, let me share a review. This is from Jay Geisler, and she, I guess I'm going to call her a she, I don't know, titles it Christian Truths Around Kicking Sugar Addiction. And so here's what she says. I first became aware of you on the Quit Sugar Summit this spring, and I immediately perused your website, purchased one of your books, and started listening to your podcast. I have been so inspired and encouraged by your words of hope around healing, growth, and change. I love how you boldly and sincerely share the truth and grace God has imparted to you through your personal journey of weight loss and sustained weight loss over several years. Thanks for being obedient to God's call on your life and for taking courageous steps in sharing a message of hope to so many of us who struggle with sugar addiction. May God continue to bless you and your ministry. Thanks so much, Jay. And I bless you on your journey and pray that the grace and truth of God will pour hope and transformation into your life. Right now, I need my voice to clear, right? But I'm going to go ahead because I don't know that it will. So we'll just deal with it, okay? I'd love it if some of you could also write a review for the podcast. You can do that by simply going to Apple Podcasts and scrolling down to the bottom to where it tells you to write a review. And also, please share this episode with others. I promise it's one you'll want to listen to again and again. Okay, so, after working with God to tear down a ton of mental strongholds, which led me to become a sugar addict, I surrendered my addiction to him and followed what he showed me to do. And in doing that, I began losing weight. I was finally headed in the right direction and the weight was staying off. I had processed and dealt with tons of lies that had held me back for years. And I felt good about myself for the first time in a very, very long time. When I'd start to lose weight previously, I was always waiting for everything to fall apart, But that feeling was gone. And I was thanking God because I was finally almost to my goal. But no longer were sugar, desserts, and comfort foods ruling my life. And that was truly a welcome relief. Then, just when I thought everything was going good, I hit a brick wall. And it felt like it came out of nowhere. I tried to do everything I knew to fix it, but nothing was working. So I was at the 200 mark, and I so wanted to go into Wonderland, right? I had been steadily losing weight, but when I would see 199 on the scale, I would panic, and I couldn't figure out what was going on or why that was even happening. I would see that number, and the next day I'd be back to 200, and I would feel myself internally breathe a sigh of relief. I was exercising, I was eating all the right things and none of the wrong things, but I just couldn't stay at 199. And that's the direction I wanted to go. I wanted to go further down than that, but that's the direction I wanted to go. It really felt like that Romans 7:19 conundrum that I talk about a lot. It says, the good I want to do, I don't do. The very wrong I don't want to do, I do. And if I understood, what is it? What's in my way? I couldn't figure out what was holding me back. I thought, well, maybe I'm at a plateau. Maybe I'm eating too little. Maybe my body thinks it's in starvation mode. Or maybe I think I'm eating too much and I need to cut back. Or maybe I need to add more vegetables. Or maybe I need to exercise more. I tried all of these things, but nothing worked. My body still didn't want to go down below 199. It really felt like my body was scared to go down below 200, and to see that 199 just made me, want to go right back up. And I wasn't doing anything different. I didn't eat anymore or anything like that. It was just something happened and I didn't know what. So I hadn't really shared this at the meeting that I was attending on a weekly basis. I just hadn't shared any weight loss in a while. But I thought, okay, it's time for me to see if anybody knows what's going on. And so I shared it, and all the members gave me input, but everything they had said was what I had already tried. And so there was nothing there that they were sharing with me that was really helpful. So then, as my mentor, Russ, has a habit of doing, he asked me a question, which at first seemed totally unrelated to what I had just shared. He said, where did you learn your relationship with food? Okay, that's a pivotal question that you need to put into your thinking cap. Write it down if you've got a pen and paper, or remember it. Where did you learn your relationship with food? That question invaded my mind. Not for a second did I wonder whether or not I had a relationship with food. I mean, we're not supposed to have a relationship with food, okay? We have relationships with people. We might have relationships with our pets, Like my husband is downstairs mending one of my shirts. He's much better at it than I am. And he's watching television at the same time. And the cat is sitting in his lap. And he has my shirt, and over beside the cat. So the cat thinks that Roy is looking at him. But no, Roy is mending my shirt. But the cat is satisfied. It's a relationship they have. A relationship. Well, we're not supposed to have a relationship with food. But when he asked that question, I knew I did. And I knew I learned it from my very loving grandma, who fed me with every kind of food I wanted, including every type of dessert. And I could eat as much as I wanted whenever I wanted it. It was always readily available when I was at her house. So I preferred her more lavish style of food preparation and presentation to my mother's 3 square meals with fruit for dessert version. Now, what kid wouldn't want to be able to eat as much as dessert as they wanted anytime they wanted, right? I equated the kind of foods Grandma prepared with comfort and love. And when I was away from home, and I felt overwhelmed, sad, angry, lonely, fearful, worried, stressed, or just plain old frustrated, I would make something Grandma would have made, and I would eat that, and that would immediately comfort me. It was my comfort food. But as all foods do, and especially these kind of comfort foods made with sugar and flour. They comfort you for a while until the sugar high wears off, which doesn't take very long. And then I would need more to get the same feeling. Still, fresh baked oatmeal cookies always seemed to wrap me in Grandma's arms, even if she wasn't there. And of course, by the time I was an adult, my grandma had passed. When I was around 40, almost 40, she passed away. In reality, this way of coping wasn't comforting at all. It just made me remember her because, it was very discomforting in that it had caused me to gain an extreme amount of weight and then struggle through learning how to lose the weight. And now those same thoughts of comfort were threatening to ruin my healthy living journey because it seemed like my body had said, this is it. This is where we're stopping. You can't go any further. But to not cook those foods felt like I would be abandoning my culture and dishonoring Grandma. It took me a while to process what was happening in my head and in my heart. But to believe Grandma's foods, which were my favorites, had been harming me, saddened me. I know she didn't aim to hurt me. She fed me out of love. However, the little girl in me was emotionally attached to those foods, which I equated to the extreme unconditional love of my grandmother. While the adult me knew I couldn't eat all of those foods in the quantities I had consumed them in the past and be healthy, the emotional part of me was still stuck back baking cookies with Grandma. And it was almost like I had plan A, which was to follow God and to not eat sugar and not eat flour. But then there was plan B, and plan B was Grandma's comfort food. And I felt like I could always fall back on that if plan A stopped working, But as I'm processing all of this, it was like God all of a sudden revealed the truth to me. Grandma's cooking was the wall. Grandma wasn't the barrier. Grandma's love wasn't the barrier, but her cooking was. And I had equated the two. They had become enmeshed in my heart and in my mind. Could I separate them? Could I still hold a place in my heart for Grandma if I turned my back on the things she cooked? Now, as I'm talking about this, I really want you to think about the person in your life who showed you this. Could have been your mother, could have been an aunt, it could have been your father or your grandfather. I know I've had coaching clients who had dads who were the ones who really plied them with the comfort foods. But see, I couldn't imagine never again cooking, baking hot rolls, chocolate pie, brownies, Mama's oatmeal cake, or a myriad of the other special legacy dishes that I remembered growing up with. I mean, I wouldn't eat them, but couldn't other people eat them? Shouldn't I be sharing this gift with others? But this emotional wall of cultural foods was really vivid in my mind. They emanated from Grandma's kitchen. And after sharing what I had discovered, my mentor asked, what would your grandma say to you if she knew certain foods were causing you to ruin your health? Now, there wasn't hesitation then either, because I know she would have told me to give them up. And many times she would say to me things like, honey, you'd feel so much better if you just lose some weight. And then about 5 minutes later, she would say, I baked a batch of oatmeal cookies. They're over there right in the cabinet. Eat as many as you want. That second message always drowned out the first, although both of them were heartfelt. She I clearly saw the disconnect between the two statements as God was kind of revealing it to me. But I also realized she never saw it. She was a large woman, but never as large as I had gotten. But what I realized was she probably weighed around 200 pounds. Or at least that's what I had in my head. And if I got down below where she was, it seemed like it would be dishonoring her. And my body had stopped there. It couldn't go further until I dealt with this. Grandma ate what she needed, but she also worked hard. She worked long days, and it never once crossed her mind that certain foods could be addictive. They were just necessary for getting through the day on the farm, especially with a husband who was putting in daylight till dusk and sometimes later than dusk with the lights on, But during this group meeting, I let those foods go, those cultural foods, and I embraced more of what my mother had been trying to teach me. Part of me didn't want to agree that she had been trying to teach me a better way than Grandma. I mean, Grandma was my person, Mom was just someone who had problems for most of my growing up years. Clearly, though, it was true. Mom had the better way, Mom had taken a home ec class in high school, and she'd learned how to cook what she considered balanced meals. Her meals, though, had none of the frills, and dessert was like a can of mixed fruit divided between all of those of us at the table. She only fixed just enough food because in our small house, we didn't have room to store leftovers. We had a very small refrigerator. Oh, and I mustn't leave out the liver we had to eat about once a week when she had it to fix. That would be when Papa gave us meat and it had liver in it. She would fix it once a week until it was gone. And I hated liver, still do. But I would force a few bites down just to get some fruit for dessert. Now, liver has iron in it. And even today, I'm low on iron. So truly, she had been loving us in a different way. So to get through this, I forgave myself for not learning the lessons of limited, practical, balanced meals that my mother had been trying to teach me. And I said a prayer of thanks for how she tried to take care of us. I forgave Grandma, and this was hard because, like I said, she was my person. We all have people like that, the people who made us feel the most loved. The adult me understood, though, that I could not go forward and reach any of my goals without conquering this issue. The little girl me was still hanging on to those wonderful feelings of love and comfort. She didn't want to let them go completely. She wanted them as a fallback. And anytime we have a fallback, that means when we come upon some really difficult time in our life, we're going to go to that instead of what we need to go to. I don't want to have a fallback. I want God to be my plan A with no plan B. And since Grandma was already gone, she was already in heaven, it seemed the only part left of her was those comfort foods. But they would kill me if I went back to them. And they might set up the same kind of issue in some of my extended family. I had to work with Holy Spirit to really conquer this difficulty and give it to Him completely. So I said out loud, Holy Spirit, I forgive Grandma for feeding me the wonderful foods, which would become addictive to me. I forgive her for making me feel food equals love and comfort. I understand she would be sad to know what these types of foods did to me, and I know she did not mean to hurt me. Then I renounced the lie. The Holy Spirit would comfort me in a way which would be harmful to me, and I ask, Holy Spirit, what is your truth? Now, I didn't hear or sense any words that he said. I simply felt love and peace invade my being, like being swaddled in a warm, secure blanket. And I understood for the first time, this is what real comfort feels like. It's not an overfull feeling, which leads to damaging my body. It is a peace like only the Holy Spirit, who is the true comforter, can bring into our lives. I realized a huge truth here. The Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ within me, who gives me the strength to overcome my difficulties. That's who he is. He is the true comforter. Philippians 4:11-13, the Passion Translation says this: I have learned to be satisfied with whatever I have. I know what it means to lack, and I know what it means to experience overwhelming abundance. For I am trained in the secret of overcoming all things, whether in fullness or in hunger. And I find the strength of Christ's explosive power infuses me to conquer every difficulty. That strength is the Holy Spirit within us. When we rely on him to comfort us, to teach us what to do and how to go forward, our lives will fall into place. This incident really showed me how heavy emotional baggage is. I had already given up eating sugar, but this was a final severing of my emotional ties with those foods I loved. Within a month, I had dropped another 5 pounds and moved toward losing the rest of the weight that I wanted to lose, and then working to keep it off, which that's still an ongoing process. This had become an embedded stronghold and was difficult to face because the stronghold was entangled with someone I loved deeply. Now, untangling those issues is what God is a master at. He revealed to me other ways my grandma loved me. Like a big one was just spending time with her anytime I was at her house. I'm following her around like a little puppy, sitting close to her, breaking beans and hulling peas and doing those kind of things with her. I remember at night, she'd make a pallet down beside her bed, and she'd reach her hand down. After I got into my pallet, she'd reach her hand down and hold my hand until I fell asleep at night. And I loved those times specifically because I got to hear Papa pray with her. And he'd pray, she and he both would pray for every member of the family, me included. And they'd pray specifics for all of us. They did that every night. And it was a comfort I had forgotten about because I was uber focused on the wrong thing. I was focused on the food. When I saw the truth of what I had been believing, I realized how the enemy can use even the most loving memories to set up lies, which become some of the fiercest strongholds. When they are wrapped around those we love and cherish, it makes it nearly impossible to separate the lie from the one we love. It is in separating the lies, though, from the person that stronghold will crumble. So We all need comfort. We can't go forward without it, but it must be the comfort the Holy Spirit brings. Everything else is just placating our soulish and selfish desires, and we don't want to do that. Jesus came to free us from ourselves. Sending the Holy Spirit to live inside us just seals that deal. We have access to the Supreme Comforter. So why do we need anything else? So I love Psalms 94, 18 through 19. This is in the Passion Translation. And it says, when I screamed out, Lord, I'm doomed, your fiery love was stirred, and you raced to my rescue. Whenever my busy thoughts were out of control, the soothing comfort of your presence calmed me down and overwhelmed me with delight. There is nothing like God's presence to comfort us. It is better than the finest dessert Grandma ever made. Now, those last two lines were mine, right? Real comfort, though, is knowing God is on our side. He will never leave us. He's planning our future. He's got everything worked out. We don't have to stress or worry. We can leave it in his hands, and it will be all right. There is nothing more comforting to me than knowing this truth. There were many other strongholds I had to confront as I went forward on my journey, and some of them threatened to ruin all the efforts that I had put in so far. But I learned that emotional traumas, lies I believed, and false mindsets do add weight to our bodies, and not just in the form of eating too much. My body actually wants to hold on to weight at certain times until I'm able to work through whatever is going on in my mind, my emotions, and my body. We must allow God to help us identify and break the strongholds that wreak havoc in our bodies, even though we have never allowed them to be set up in our lives. My Breaking Strongholds course will go into a lot more detail about all of this. It's a 17 weeks course, starts next week, September 24th. And I am debuting this in Overcomers Academy because this is where I direct the majority of my focus and energy. It may be released as a standalone course after we finish it, which won't be until in mid-January of 2021. If I do release it after then, the price will be higher and will not include my personal attention to those who are in the course. So in Overcomers Academy, I release a video lesson each week along with action steps to help you implement what you've learned. In addition, I conduct a monthly video call where I deal one-on-one with those who have questions and want to dig deeper to discover what their strongholds are and how to allow God to break them. I also answer questions in the group and even from time to time when my voice will straighten up, I do a Facebook Live to answer specific questions. So if you feel stuck on your journey and can't figure out what's going on, likely you have a stronghold you need to identify and break with God's help. So here's the deal. I went through all of the hard work to develop the course just for you. I will close Overcomers Academy after September 24th. Haven't decided on the exact date, but I do want everyone to start this course at approximately the same time. So join us today by going to my website, teresashieldsparker.com, click on the weight loss tab, and then Overcomers Academy. That specific link will be down in the show notes. I'll see you in the group. Until next week, sweet grace for your journey.